Go to danpatrick.com, click on the Spirits tab, something really special there that's been 10 years since it was last available. Go to danpatrick.com and find out. 877-3DP-SHOW. Email address, dp@danpatrick.com. Twitter handle @DP-SHOW. DraftKings just sent me the Stanley Cup odds to win it all. It's the Hurricanes, Oilers, Stars, all closely bunched there with the Panthers and the Maple Leafs. PK Subban, he's an ESPN analyst and former defenseman, played 13 years in the NHL. Second round action on the mothership, doubleheader at 7 Eastern, Panthers, Leafs, then 9:30 Stars against the Jets. And you can catch PK tonight, pregame coverage on The Point at 6 on ESPN2, ESPN Plus, and in studio in between periods there. Great to have you on, PK. What kind of mood do you think Toronto is going to be in tonight when they face Florida?
Well, they'd have to be in a pretty good mood. You know, you're up 1-0 at home, still at home, playing in your building again, and you know that you maybe didn't play your best game in game one. I think they had a great start, but maybe not the best finish. So coming into game two, they should feel pretty good about where they're at and playing a full 60 minutes.
But you had an incident where, you know, your goalie takes a elbow to the head. He's throwing up. They take him off. Like, you guys, you know, police your own sport here. How does Toronto stay in the game, an important game, while you still send the message to maybe the most physical team in the NHL?
100%. And I think that the best way to send that message is in between the whistles and shift by shift. This is going to be a long series. There's going to be ups and downs. As a player, for the most part, leave the media and all the quotes and all that stuff to the fans. As a player, you got to stay focused on what you need to do on the ice. And let's be honest here. Nobody knows that the symptoms that Anthony Stolarz that we all witnessed on the bench were from that hit. I think a lot of people believe that maybe it was from something else, maybe a sickness or from the prior shot due. But that all being said, no one should be speculating on what the injury status is of Anthony Stolarz. And make no doubt about it, based on the incident outside the crease, or just inside the crease, rather, this was not a significant enough play for this to be anything. This is just playoff hockey, and both coaches are doing what they need to do to maintain the edge.
Explain to me, we talk about goalies standing on their heads, like they're going to stop everything. But why is it in that moment we have at least one goalie every playoff, a Stanley Cup final, where you go, I'll be damned. Like he's winning a series, winning a Stanley Cup championship.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like it's goaltending has become more and more important every year. And it's always been important. You know, playing hockey, it's the ultimate team sport, but we have an individual position that can really dictate whether you are a competitive team, a contending team, or you're not even close. And without a good goaltender, you're probably not getting too far in the regular season, let alone the playoffs. So when it comes to playoff times, we're seeing the best goaltenders, on the most competitive teams going at it. And, we're seeing that every night. Now, what we're also seeing is a lot of contact in the crease. A lot of that is due to because players are doing whatever they can to disrupt any groove that the goaltender might be in. Any rhythm that he might be in, you want to disrupt that by flash screens and getting physical in the crease. Well, sometimes that boils over. Sam Bennett's going into the crease. Yeah, I know he says Anthony Stolarz is his buddy, but he's going in there. If he makes contact, I mean, no one's upset about that. And let's be real. If you hurt the number one goaltender, if a third or fourth line guy runs, and this is something that we got to talk about in hockey, is all it takes is one player to say, you know what? I'm going to go in there and, whatever happens, happens. But, you lose that player for a couple games. That's one thing. But losing your number one goaltender for the playoffs is another. And, I've been on that side, right? When we lost Carey Price against the Rangers in the conference final, that was the end of our run. So they're trying to protect the goaltenders the best that they can. But that play on the crease wasn't anything to gawk at. Wasn't anything too crazy.
What's it like to fight somebody and then he turns out to be your teammate at some point in your career?
Happens a lot in hockey. This is what makes our sport so special. And, Brian Burke says the hockey fraternity is the best fraternity in all of sports. And I believe him but it starts for that simple reason. We are the only sport where you can fight a guy and the next day literally be sitting at the bar having a beer with him after playing a full 60 minutes and fighting next to him, right? So we're the only sport that does that. It's about honor. It's all about your teammates and team first, and the willingness to do anything for the team. That's what fighting really is in hockey.
When do you start fighting in hockey? At what age? Or is it acceptable?
Well, I mean, we oftentimes now, because we're in the world of social media, I get all these reels and these tweets at me every day of like these little 9-year-old kids having brawls on the ice in different parts. And like, this just happens in hockey. It happens all the time. It happens in all sports. But it's funny to me when I see the little kids doing it in hockey, because they're watching everything on TV. But, I'll keep it real. People talk about our sport the time. They don't talk about the respect in it. There's a lot of respect in it. And they talk about it a little bit, but not to the degree that they probably should. And the level of respect in the game of hockey is, I think it's unmatched in any other sport because of the physicality and the danger in our sport. And when you talk about fighting, there's such a respect in regards to fighting that if you do it the wrong way, you're going to have everybody, including your teammates, not happy with you. So, that's the respect that fighting sort of garners when you drop the gloves. We all know it's something that you have to be willing to do, and not everybody's willing to do it. So I think for kids, it's not in the forefront for them. We stress skill and talent because you got to entertain at the end of the day. This is sports entertainment. So the fighting part, is a part of the game, but the entertainment goes way up, right? The entertainment, though, has to meet the skill as well. So we got to have a balance of both. And I think we have that in the league. But fighting for me doesn't really start until the kids are about 14 or 15. Usually once you get to junior, and even then it's like a choice. If you don't want to fight, you don't have to.
PK Subban of the Mothership, ESPN analyst, and second round playoff action coming up tonight. It's a doubleheader. It's the Maple Leafs, Panthers, and then it'll be the Dallas Stars, Winnipeg Jets. Playoff scoring is up again. I think this might be the fifth consecutive year playoff scoring is going up. Why is that?
I think it's the style of play, the way teams are built. Obviously, it's the way the game is policed as well with officiating. You can't hook and hold anymore. You can't clutch and grab. You can't cross-check. You can't do all those things as a defenseman, to impede players. Guys are also coming into the league way more skilled. When I came into the league, you knew that their third and fourth line probably weren't scoring any goals. They could run around and hit, but now you've got goal scorers and multi-point guys on the third and fourth line. I was just talking about this last night about Edmonton with, Corey Perry scoring that beautiful goal on that passing play with McDavid. But Corey Perry was a 50-goal scorer in the OHL. Like, Corey Perry was a 100-point guy in the OHL. Corey Perry is a former MVP, a Stanley Cup champion, playing on the fourth line and up and down their lineup. And when you look at the Detroit Red Wings back in the day, Kirk Maltby, Darren McCarthy, excuse me, I'm missing another name here, but they had Danny Cleary. They had a bunch of guys that played those roles, those third and fourth line roles when they got to the NHL, but were skilled players in junior hockey. So I think there's a lot more talent in the league, a lot more skill. There's way more parity in the game, which challenges teams. I think the star players have to do a lot more every night, which is more difficult to do. So, and there's more teams now, so you have more skilled players. So I think there's no off nights now. You could circle your, calendar and for the games that were point nights, even in the playoffs, you knew that you were playing against teams that were going to give up a lot. Now it's just difficult to do that. You got to play a disciplined game, and you got to have skilled players that can check both sides of the puck. And I think we're seeing the game at probably its highest point in a long time.
I'll let you start your team with Sid Crosby or Alex Ovechkin.
Sidney Crosby. First of all, I'll always take a Canadian player over any country. I am Canadian. This is our sport, folks. I know I work for ESPN in America, but hockey is our sport. So I'm always going to go with the Canadian. But, I'll say this about both Sidney Crosby and Alex Ovechkin. I mean, how lucky was the NHL to have two ambassadors like that? over the past 2 decades. And we're hoping to have him around a lot longer too. Neither of them is slowing down, and you can see the age, but the performance hasn't really dropped that much. And they're premier athletes, premier professionals, and most of all, premier people, the way they've represented the game. So to have either or of those guys would be a huge win. They're both champions. Like I said, great ambassadors, great teammates. But I'm going with Sidney Crosby. To me, he's the best all-around player in my generation. He's a winner. He's a champion. And once again, he's got that Canadian maple syrup running through his veins. That's the X Factor, Dan.
Utah has their nickname.
Is it the Mammoth?
Yeah.
Did I see that?
Yeah.
Is it the Mammoth?
Yeah, what do you think?
Okay, what do you think of that?
I kind of like the Utah Hockey Club.
You like the Utah Hockey Club? Me too. I did like it. I did like it just playing. It was starting to grow on me, especially towards the end. But, I will say this, Dan, as a fan, because I still consider myself a big sports fan. That's why I do this now, is that I'm a fan of sports. Is that the fan does love those logos. They like having that logo, like the Chicago Blackhawks logo, to have that.
That's the best logo. That's the best logo in sports.
It is. And I think for Utah, they want the opportunity to create something iconic. So I understand having a proper name and a proper logo. I get that, but I share that with you, dude. I'm the same way. I loved Utah Hockey Club. I love the simplicity of it. I did.
In basketball, you guard guys, like, guys who guard Michael or Larry or Kobe. And in hockey, we don't really kind of single out. It's a one-on-one matchup there. It's like us against them. But how often do you have those one-on-one moments? Like with Ovechkin, how often did you have a one-on-one where it's like, this might not end well?
Oh my God, it's such a great question. Hockey is a sport of one-on-one battles. It's all about one-on-one battles. If you watch the game of hockey, it's one-on-one battles all over the ice. It's a team sport, but you have to beat the guy across the line from you. So when we line up for that face-off, there's the centerman. He's got to be better than the centerman. The winger's got to be better than the wingers, and the D got to be better than the D. And I know who's on the other side. I know when I'm playing Erik Karlsson, Drew Doughty, Cale Makar, Victor Hedman. My job is to outdo those guys. So it's individual. This is competition. It's pro sports. So it's very much one-on-one. And that's what we want. We want our athletes to take it on. And part of my responsibility as an ex-player now being on the broadcast is to bring those battles to the forefront for the audience and people watching to see and participate in, because you don't have an opportunity to hear what the players are saying on the ice all the time, or on the court or on the field. You don't always have the opportunity to know that there's bad blood or that these players have a history. So it's our job as the analysts and the talent on air to paint that picture of the story. And last night we got a good glimpse of McDavid and Jack Eichel going back and forth. But in my time, it was, even when I came into the league, it was more rich than that. And I think that hockey is now starting to take ownership of those one-on-one battles. We saw it at the Four Nations between Brendan Hagel and Matthew Tkachuk. And we want to continue to build on those storylines. And I think the players are buying into it, and it's really helping our game.
Is there anybody you could see that you might still want a piece of, like just in regular life?
That's a great, great question. Let me see. Which guy would I want a piece of? And I don't hate, it's not that I hate him at all. I love him, but I'm going to tell you why I would want a piece of him. And I don't even know if I'd do anything if I had a chance. But let's just say I had a chance. It'd probably be Chris Kreider, because, my best chance to win the Stanley Cup with Montreal was that conference final when he collided with Carey Price. So, every Montreal Canadiens fan and every player on that team shares that same view with me, Chris still maintains that it was an accident, and I believe him.
But let's say you're at Starbucks, and he's in line at Starbucks, and you see him. You wouldn't cross-check him. You would not.
No, I wouldn't cross-check him. No. And I feel even bad throwing him into the mix like that. But no, I wouldn't, because, it's no one's bigger than the game. even me. And even though that may have been my best chance to win a Stanley Cup, there's a lot of guys out there who dream about winning the Stanley Cup. And there's a lot of guys who have before me and didn't get a chance to win one. So, I never take myself too seriously when it comes to other people. It's about the game. So maybe I'd throw a little elbow, like a Messier elbow to the ribs or something like that. Maybe I'd hit him with one of those.
Messier looks like he could still play.
Oh, I mean, don't take this the wrong way. I mean, he is my teammate and I work with him, so I'm going to pump his tires on air. But he could probably be on the front cover of GQ as well. He's a good-looking guy. I haven't met a woman yet who doesn't ask me about Mark Messier and what his whole treatment regime is and how he keeps his skin so nice and all that. I'm like, guys, I'm 35. What about me? Like, black don't crack. Come on, give me a break. Mess is taking all my shine, but no, he takes really, really good care of himself, and he's a happy guy. I also believe this: as time goes on, if you're a happy person, it shows in your energy. And there's nothing better than I love to do at work. It's a Super Bowl if I get a laugh out of Mess because he's got that big grin and that big laugh. It's just fun to see him laugh. So. No, he takes good care of himself, and he does look like he can play. I went on the ice with him in LA for that charity to raise money for the fires. And I told him right away, like, his presence on the ice, now I know why they call him Moose. I know why they call him the Moose now, because he's just so big, and you could just feel his presence. And it was pretty cool to touch the ice with him in LA.
Great to talk to you. Hope you're doing well. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Dan. Hope to come back on soon, man. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
PK Subban, mothership, played 13 years in the NHL. You got a doubleheader. You got the Leafs and the Panthers, and you got the Jets and the Stars. Last call for phone calls, what we learn, what's in store tomorrow, right after this.